Shabbat Shalom. Now we discuss what we heard. I made a few little notes just to summarize what our rabbi said, because one of the things that he wants to show us is that these four portions that we're reading, this is the second of the four, and Moses had already gone up to Mount Sinai, and these four portions about the Mishkan, and it's while Moses was up, they were celebrating, the people who were down were worshiping the golden calf. So these are not chronological, these next four portions that we're doing about the Mishkan, but it's like they envelop, they like a mother envelops her children to protect them. Like you see the picture of the mother bird covering with the wings. It's like God is covering the sin of the golden calf with the Mishkan. And one of the things that he talked about also is about that Israel was formed to be Goy Kadosh, a holy nation, a king of priests, Kohanim. But that role was taken away from all the people, and just then limited to the house of Israel because of the sin of the golden calf, and not the house of Aaron. Aaron replaced the whole of Israel as Kohanim and his four sons. And the idea is that the Kohen would be the link between Israel and God. Israel were to be all Kohanim, the whole nation were to be all priests, which would be the link between God and the rest of the people. Now they had lost that privilege, but thank God it's going to be recovered. It will be recovered, and God is making it available to all. It doesn't mean the Kohanim are better. It's just the idea of a link. And then he talked about the Mishkan would be the only place where the people would gather to focus on him. Now, it's not easy to focus. It's not easy to keep our eyes, our mind on one thing, especially people who have ADD, ADHD, who are, I know people would get upset with me because they were talking to me and my mind would be wandering already. And it's not easy. And I remember sitting there in the congregation and my body couldn't sit still. And I would take the phone and I would, play a little game while I was listening. But, it's not really focusing. It's not easy for us to focus. So this whole idea about the Mishkan was to get us to focus on him away from the gods of Egypt. And, sometimes we look like we're doing the right things. We have all these rules and regulations, and what makes us look religious, it makes us look like we're honoring God. But we forget it's deeper than just keeping certain things, certain rules. It's about God wanting a relationship with his people. And it's not always easy to be in a relationship. And then he talked about, this is Shabbat Zachor, and he went through the whole story of King Saul and how Shabbat Zachor is a day of remembrance. And everything that we are as a people is all about remembrance. At Pesach, we remember that God brought us out from Egypt. Here we're remembering how we failed at that time. And we have to remember to pass these stories on l'dor vador, from generation to generation, so that we, at one point, hopefully, we will no longer be doomed to repeat our mistakes. We have an enemy today, still from the Amalekites. Instead of Haman, we have Hamas. The prophet Samuel told King Saul what to do. And King Saul acted as if he was more humane than God, and he acted out of his own pride, his own greed. And Samuel said, obedience is better than sacrifice. So what does that mean for us today? It's what we have to look at. Our what's in us that keeps us unwilling to be obedient to our God. When we give our word and we say we're going to do something and we don't. When what makes us rebellious, what makes our nature not want to obey God's word. And that the idea of the Mishkan holds the key to that secret. It's like the sin of the golden calf, again, surrounded the Mishkan and was enveloped by the Mishkan, and where God would dwell among his people. And we have to remember that no matter what, even when we fail, God is dwelling among us. So today we're not only native born Israelites, we're also the people, all the people of God. Some of the people of God here were not native born Israelites. They're the Ger, the part of the Arab Rab, the mixed multitude who left their gods, just as we had to leave the gods of Egypt, and we become one people. Um, following Israel as God. And basically his message ends that Creator's not interested in our sacrifices. He wants our focus. He wants our attention. He wants our faithfulness. He wants our loyalty. That's a true relationship. So when we think we're talking to the Creator, are we? Or is our attention somewhere else? When we talk to our friends or our spouses, are we putting our full attention on them? So let's not act with false piety, but let's learn to be obedient to him, as the Creator wants a two-way relationship. And that, I believe, is the calling of this community, Shear Yashuv, to have a two-way relationship with God and with each other. Beautiful message from our Rabbi. I'm so grateful we recorded them. Imagine if we hadn't done that all those years. Well, we're so blessed. That's why we can't replace our Rabbi, because nobody, I haven't heard anyone teach like him. Anyway, any comments on what we heard today? Yes,
Um,
Mary.
okay. Yeah, it was a wonderful message. Just one of the things, I'm just responding to what you said. It's sort of funny. You were talking about people with ADHD and how you said with yourself, sometimes you play games because you just can't focus. But this is just a little tidbit of information that sometimes, believe it or not, I'm not talking necessarily about you, but any people who ADHD or neurodivergent, as they call it, believe it or not, sometimes they need to play those games and they actually hear better. Just as a little bit of
Well, I
information.
believe that, but I
But
know
I really mean it.
I did. I believed that when I was sitting there doing that, but the Rabbi would look at me playing a game from the front, and he didn't understand.
Well, I mean, we have
Yeah,
to be careful what message
yeah,
we send to other people, but the
yeah.
truth is, if you were alone watching a screen, that will actually sometimes help. ADDers sometimes, because you're so overcrowded in your brain, that
Oh, the body needs
the
to be
body
calm.
and the brain are
Yeah.
that it's almost doing something like that brings your energy, and you could hear actually better and understand better. But that's just a little aside. I get your point. To focus is sometimes very hard,
Yeah.
not to have your agenda going on and you're thinking of other things,
Right.
And it's interesting. I was just listening to an Amish person who had a near-death experience because their wagon, the Amish communities have the horse and wagon, whatever, and have a very simple life. Anyway, he was a very an Amish person, very followed all the guidelines of the community and blah blah blah, and then supposedly thought he was doing right by God. Anyway, his horse and buggy were hit by a car or something, very fast, and he quickly he had a near death experience. He left his body, and he just anyway he I'll try and make it short. Their whole concept of salvation that they have in Jesus, blah, blah, blah. This whole experience questioned his whole life in his community, and he realized he thought that he had to work so hard to have a relationship with God, not work the way we say, like be obedient. That's not work in the sense that he had all these rules, all these things, and his experience in this, the supernatural experience told him, like what it says, it's obedience is more important than sacrifice. He thought that his community, he realized his own self-righteousness, and in looking even at fellow people, how I'm doing what's right and you're not, blah, blah, blah. And it so humbled him, that relationship with God is really what's important, and doing right and loving your neighbor, etc. And his whole life was turned around by this experience. But it's sometimes very hard. Like I see even in my everyday life, that sometimes I think by doing certain tithes or whatever, a little part of me starts to feel, oh, okay, that's a good thing that I'm doing. And I forget that be obedient to God. Don't make your doings and more important than why you're doing it, or the heart. It's hard sometimes, you know. Anyway, it was a very, very good message. And what he said also about the Mishkan not being nice from the outside, but it's where the inside, it's where the heart is. And people who are drawn to come into the inside of things are drawn by God, but people who are more superficial would look at it and say, why is the Mishkan so ugly? And they're more drawn to fancy golden temples, etc. And it's a metaphor for our hearts being called to be in relationship with God.
Yes.
Eh, there is something that I really love about this message, is in about focus. Focus, like person like me, is very hard, honestly.
I
Okay,
believe.
I have many distractors, and I know how difficult it is to deal with. Uh, and you know that at the beginning, the desire of God was to talk directly to everyone.
Right.
I read that on Shemot 20.
Right.
Says that when God gave the Mount Sinai, the tables, they were together, and God was talking to everyone. But the problem is that only Moshe knew what God was telling him. Okay, the rest just hear the soundings, trembles, lights, and and they were afraid. So they asked to Moses, okay, we know that God wants to talk directly to us. We don't need any person who is between God and us. Okay, that is not the desire of God. But the people ask to Moses, hey Moses, you be the one that communicate directly to God. We will talk to you, and then you'll talk to God. And God will answer you, and you will give us the message to us.
Exactly.
So, in that sense, the point is that for me, okay, Mauricio Quintero, this portion is like God showing mercy to his people, okay? Because Moses will not longer live forever. Okay. So it's like preparing the field in the future to have the Aaron's kids doing a function in Israel, and be that link, okay, between spirituality and this world, okay. But but honestly, that was never necessary because the desire of God was to communicate directly to one of us. Okay. So now God is preparing that there should be something that differentiates these people from the rest. So could be identified easily. So he gives garments, special garments, okay, to communicate. It's interesting that in the future, when there is no more Moses, no more Aaron, the Kohen Gadol had the Urim and Tumim to communicate with God and communicate things that are very important. Okay, so at this point, um, that's why it says holy to God. Okay, because they were separated, and as a complete different person, they need to wear something special. Okay, um, in you know, and this is really important because this role cannot be fulfilled by anyone but by people who are descendants of Aaron. And, and also, uh, there are so many meanings about the garments. And there is something that I really like, and this is about the Urim and Tumim, right? Because
Urim and Tumim, yeah.
yeah, because the Urim, okay, it just there are many people that is talking about this is a communicator like today. No, it's nothing about that. I believe that people could focus on something that they were using, and they could that clean their minds and they can communicate with God. But the Urim means light at the end. Okay, and this will serve to make judgments. Okay, and also um, and that is something important because when I was like studying a little bit about the Rim, okay,
For what?
when I was reading this week about this portion, okay,
Okay.
eh, I realized that Urim means lighting or illuminator, and to me it was verifier, okay, in
Verifier?
verifier, yeah, to verify,
Okay.
okay. So in these stones supposedly help to have a sentence about what to do in certain moments. Okay, do we have to go to war, for example? That is a very quite important question for a no, for a leader. If you go to a war, then you can kill many people. Okay, and the economy will be destroyed and all the effects that you have, for example, for a war. That was one of the uses. Okay, remember that David used the bringing to me to consult to God. Do I have to go to war? Okay, and so it was not about, oh God, I want to buy a car. Do I have to do or not?
Right.
It's not that. Okay, so it was used to make some Israel, like a nation, decisions. Okay, very important decisions. But what I like is that to illuminate, I relate with a menorah, with a pure oil. Light is God, okay, but also is wisdom, okay, and as well to verify is something else that we need to do, okay. When we need to make judgments, we need to verify, not just hear people, not just hear the first impression that we have. Okay, I'm gonna take the decision because of this and this and that. No, is about to verify that is what are the intentions, verify what is behind the question, verify. So this makes you to have a better answer in your life. Um, in also, you know, I was thinking about why God did you choose to have this garment special for these people? I mean, why we cannot go to you know, like to be priest and wear the same clothes as everyone? And that is also something important because that is to honor. Okay, it's honoring. It's about honoring. Um, in and to show respect, okay, to God, also to show respect to yourself, and also because you were before the King of Kings, okay.
Which is why we choose to dress up on Shabbat when we go into the synagogue. You know, we're coming before God,
Yes,
right?
and also to that to show that the garments we use every day is to honor God, okay. um and that is something also very important, okay, because today people is wearing a lot of garments that honestly
Don't honor anybody,
not garments, okay.
Even themselves.
least of all themselves. I
Yes.
wanted to ask you a question because Miriam and I had this conversation this week, and something you said about the mediator, like Moses became the mediator between God and the people, and God never meant for that to be. He wanted to speak directly to all of us. Now, when Miriam and I both came out of the New Age, and we had an experience with Yeshua. In those days, we knew him as Jesus, and it was an experience that really changed our lives. And today, when we look at Jesus, we're wondering. I'm wondering, like, what was he? It, was he used? I'm wondering if he was used by God to lead us back to the Torah, to lead us almost like the Mishkan, leading us away from the gods of Egypt. Maybe Yeshua was became an important part of our lives to lead us away from the old things and into the new. Not that like, because only God can give us a supernatural event in our lives. No man did. Moses didn't, although he did miracles. He performed miracles. Yeshua did. He performed miracles, but he's gone. He's not here anymore. And yet people use him still as a mediator today. You know, people will pray to Jesus or even pray to Mary, you know, before they don't think that they can go directly to God. But what part does Yeshua play in our lives other than leading us to the Torah?
Yeah, you know, the very first thing is to understand that Yeshua never thought he he was a rabbi. Okay, first.
Right.
Never thought he become into the initiator of a new religion.
No.
The religion starts 330 years after his death, more or less.
Right.
Okay. So, but the point is that he's, the persons who create Christianity, they try to put Yeshua in a position that he was better than Moses.
Right.
So, because even though the Torah says that nobody else is like Moses, prior Moses and after Moses, that can talk to God,
Face to
face.
face.
Then they try to show that the Yeshua was better than Moses. Okay. So um in this is a very sad part, okay, because then people, like Rabbi said, need something to focus on to approach to God,
Something we can see.
something we can see. I was talking with a friend of mine who I love too much, and he told me, I never thought talk about religion with him, but one day he started to tell me that he's very devoted to an image of Jesus that is in a place that is called Sonsonate. In during the Holy Week, okay, in El Salvador, they carry the image on their shoulders by several blocks, okay, just to show a devotion to Jesus. And they dress the image, okay, they clean it up very nice. In is Jesus carrying a cross, and everybody is like, supposedly they are venerating the image because
Right.
that is an important thing, something that happens in all Latin America as well as in Spain, okay. In he's the president of this I would say it's like a cultural work, okay. And then he was telling me that what he did, okay, about venerating this image is because allows him to focus on the image and to connect with God.
Right.
Okay. So it's the very same principle. And I've heard many people that they need to go to a quiet place and see an image of Mary or you know eh, a
Others
saint,
think.
whatever, and they focus on that image to connect with divinity. And they honestly, I believe that they don't worship the image like idolatry, if I can say something. They use this vehicle just like to connect because they are focused on many things, that when they can focus on something, then they can be alone without any thought in their minds and allow them to talk to God. Okay. So for that reason, I do not condemn them about that. Uh, I'm not better than them. And also, I was talking to them that that was interesting because that is what happened in the Mishkan. Okay. It is a very tiny border between, to fall into idolatry and to fall to say, oh, that is a mediator. Okay,
Well, it's a
because
little bit like our people wanting to rebuild the temple again today and bring it
yes,
back the sacrificial system. It's almost like they're worshiping the temple becomes a
yeah, or even some rebels image, for example,
right,
their home. Okay,
right,
so that is something that probably God knew how the human brain works and allow them to have something to relation because not everyone has the capacity to connect with God, okay, daily. Um, you know, sometimes I need to focus and start to see the sky, for example, to connect with God.
right,
I'm not worshiping the sky
right,
or not worshiping the sea or some river or some flower, that is just to focus. And in this case, the point is that people started to understand that the mediator is like a person who substitutes God. Okay, and that was never the intention. That
right,
what people told to Moses, we want that you talk to God and then the answer, you can tell us the answer and then we receive the answer. But the point needs that they have to grow. That's why the God led the Torah. And later we read that God allows them, and Moses also, eh, that that could be a new prophet until I'm coming from God, but you need to differentiate if he's from God or not. So he gave us the tool through Torah to know if that is true or not. Okay.
right,
So at the end, eh, we can decide if the person is talking by him or talking by God. Okay. So that is important to grow and learn about Torah. So the mediator, honestly, is a made-up idea. Okay. That is that's because even though the priest never was a mediator. Okay. Uh, he the only place that I can see that there is a mediator is when Aaron put himself between lives and death. Remember after the golden calf, okay? But um, he was like a shield, okay? Eh, but it's not necessary. And now Yeshua, for me, uh, he's a guide, okay, a guidance to all of us about how to live Torah and how to interpret Torah, and that is what we follow, okay. But it's not necessarily that we worship Yeshua, for example, or follow Yeshua because today nobody knows how was Yeshua.
right, exactly. We know a few words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are so many images of Yeshua that you have black Yeshua, Chinese Yeshua, white Yeshua, Arab Yeshua. So
There was a Yeshua in the New Age. He was an avatar. He was,
yeah.
yeah. There's so
It's
So
many.
interesting that even Moses became worshipped as God. Remember, what was it?
Moses,
Archipanos,
Artipan,
Archipanos, or something.
Archipanos, and he wrote a book, Moses Redivivus, to bring him back.
Yeah, remember
Yeah.
when they held up the stick? Moses, they said held that. I think from that they hold up this. Whoever holds up,
The snake on the stick
right.
would be healed.
And
Yeah,
I
we've
think
always
that's when
looked for
Moses
something.
became like a god.
Right. We have a tendency to do that in our lives.
But what I really love, what the first time when I just came to the congregation, out pretty much out of the New Age and then out of Christianity. But one of the things I remember what Rabbi said was so simple, but I was so happy to hear it. He said, there's only one God, number one, which I knew, but he said it in a way that there's one God for the whole world. And also that in this whole world, you are going to find, like you just said, Mauricio, that there are people who really love God, but maybe they need to go through Mary. And I was taught in the Christian church that without even thinking about it, there's nobody who believes that who could be saved. But it could be very well that that person who goes through Mary is really going to God, but they need to go through that for whatever reason. Even the man at the plant store who hugged you the other day, I really feel like that he belongs to God, but he's a Christian. He needs that vehicle, whatever. So Rabbi Percy was the first one to say what would be considered blasphemy in most Christian churches, is that even a Catholic could belong to God, a Christian could belong to God, even a Muslim could
Even a
belong to
Muslim,
God.
anybody.
Yeah, and that was so
Yeah. I
important for
remember
me
when he
to
talked
hear.
about how he had met this Catholic priest, and he understood the Catholic priest really believed in God. He understood that most of the things that he had to do in his church were pagan, but he said, God placed me here, and this is where my ministry is, to bring people to God. So
But even people who aren't even, yes, that's right. But even I met, well, I was close friends. I used to work with this woman, a Catholic woman. And at this point, I was struggling. I was in the Christian church. And she would say, she got really angry and upset at me when I said, well, Mary's just a person, but blah, 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 blah. And I went on and on. And she got red and she said, that's the way I go to God, whatever. But I knew by her actions and other things, she said that she belonged to God, but I didn't know how to reconcile that with, well, in Christianity, there's no way that a person like that can belong to God. And when Rabbi Percy said, what seems like blasphemy, that yes, she could very well have a relationship with God, but that's the way she knew. That's what she knew.
part of our journey. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I gotta leave right now, but
yeah, we're going to leave too. It was a wonderful meeting today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Moshe in Uganda, how are you doing? How are things in Uganda? Maybe he's fast asleep by now. It's 7 hours ahead or more. Anyway, Sari, ¿cómo estás? ¿Bien?
You don't see me, eh?
No,
Oh.
I see only money, Brian. I see only money on
No,
instead of your
I
face.
think I'm on the reverse side. That's when you see me.
Yeah,
Somehow money's correct now, but I'm in front of the camera. You don't see me.
yeah.
Camera's
Well,
on.
yeah. Richard, take care of yourself in California. Jerry, you take care. Nice to see you today. Mauricio, be well. I guess you're doing the message next week. And we look forward.
Shabbat Shalom all.
Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom,
to everybody.
Richard.
Rhonda, to everyone at T.
Shabbat Shalom, estoy bien.
Be well,
Shabbat
everybody.
Shalom.
Good and a blessed week. Bye.
Hey.